Hello.
Hi.
And not you. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Oh, geez. Welcome back to this episode of Coffee and Tea with Justin and Tashina.
Yeah, welcome back.
This is another late in the day episode.
Yeah.
We started a couple hours ago, and now it's like 4:30.
Yeah.
We had an amazing, incredible guest on the podcast.
One of my favorite content creators.
Absolutely. We had Jackie from Vegan Yack Attack on the podcast today.
Yeah.
Oh, are we adjusting each other's wires? Here.
No.
Yeah,
I'll
no,
do it.
put that.
I got it.
Jackie is an incredibly accomplished photographer and an incredibly accomplished cookbook cookbook author.
Yeah.
I don't know where I was going with that. And a great blogger.
Yeah.
A great human person on social media. I feel like before we started recording this, I had all these deep, great things I was going to say about Jackie, and it just doesn't seem like it's coming out in a way that really...
Yeah.
Should we just start over?
No, I think let's keep going. I want to say like Jackie's blog, veganyacattack.com is one of the food blogs that I've been reading for a very, very long time. It's one I always suggest to people because everything I've made from her recipes has been really good. I feel like they're very approachable. They're very much for like your average everyday person, whether you're vegan or not. Like if you're someone that just wants to incorporate more meatless meals, it's a really good place to start. And I feel like there are recipes for all different skill levels.
Absolutely.
And primarily lately, especially on Instagram, there have been more pantry-friendly things. And so that's something we talked about.
Which basically means stuff that you might already have.
Yeah, which is so helpful right now for people.
Absolutely. Yeah.
She has a few different cookbooks.
I really feel like Jackie is being very intentional about providing a service to people right now with everything that's going on, and it's just incredible because she's putting out this great content that's really helping people.
It is
awesome.
So it was great to sit down and talk with her and to hear about like her evolution as a content creator, to hear about what the content she's creating right now is and why, and just a bunch of different things. We talked for a really long time, so it's kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
But
I think we only recorded like an hour and a half, but we talked for like 3 hours.
Yeah. So I think it's a good one for a lot of people, especially because I think a lot of people watch this and are familiar with where we come from as content creators, but to hear from someone who's in a different niche.
Who really kind of started at the same time.
Yeah. I think it's super interesting.
Absolutely. Yeah, we, like Tashina said, we talk about Jackie's origin story. We talk about photography. We kind of nerd out a little bit. So I would say if you're somebody who, first of all, I really do think this episode is just kind of entertaining in general. But second of all, if you're somebody who has been thinking, how does somebody get started in food content? How does somebody become a product photographer? I just feel like there are so many great topics that we discussed, and Jackie is such a wealth of knowledge in so many different arenas that it was a ton of fun to hear how she got to where she is today.
Yeah, I agree.
It's a lot of fun.
It was really cool.
Yeah. All right.
So you can find her at veganyacattack.com, Vegan Yack Attack on Instagram, Vegan Yack Attack across the board.
What's
everywhere.
her Twitter handle? Is that what I tweeted at her to get on this episode?
Yeah. I'm assuming it's Vegan Yack Attack, but I don't know for sure.
I literally tweeted at her and said, do you want to be on our podcast right now?
Yeah.
Vegan Yack Attack. Yes.
Yeah.
YACK, not like the animal yak.
Yeah. So definitely check her out. Check out her recipes. And
we're going to be doing a part 2 as well.
Yeah.
Because as we started to dive in, I was like, wow, we're at like an hour and 15 minutes and I have so much more I want to talk about.
Yeah.
She is an incredible human being.
Yeah.
She's doing a lot of great stuff for animals and a lot of great stuff for people trying to help animals with her work.
Yeah.
So Should we talk about what we're grateful for before we jump into the episode?
Sure.
Okay, you go. You want to go first?
You go first.
Oh, okay. Well, one thing I'm grateful for is that I was literally able to tweet at Jackie and say, "Do you want to be on our podcast in 30 minutes?" And she was like, "Yep, let's do it." Which was just super unexpected. I did not expect that to work out as well as it did. But so I'm grateful that she was able to be on.
Yeah.
And like I know I've said 1,000 times before, I'm grateful that we've been fortunate enough to meet people who are doing amazing things that we're able to connect with and talk with, and who are just open. There are a lot of people out there who are doing amazing things who aren't super open. So the fact that she was just so willing to talk and share everything that she knows was just really great. I feel really fortunate about that. It inspires me. Yeah. I think especially during these times for somebody who's as extroverted and social as I am, it's a little tough to not go out and be with people and talk with people. And so this was just really, really special. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah,
really nice.
It was a lot of fun. Yeah, I'm really grateful that she was able to do it also. I am grateful for everyone who has continued to listen to this and watch this.
Absolutely.
Like, just so much love for those people. I really appreciate
26, I think.
Wow.
That's crazy.
It's super crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you for those of you that are still listening. Thank you for those of you that just started listening. I really, really appreciate it. I'm really grateful for you.
I'm really grateful for you.
Thank you.
For them. And for you.
Thank you.
I just love you so much.
I love you too.
All right. Well, what should we do now?
I think let's get into it.
We have Jackie Sobon on the line with us. I'm so excited.
Yeah, me too. If you guys aren't familiar, she runs Vegan Yack Attack, which is one of my favorite vegan cooking websites. She has a handful of books out. Amazing recipes, super accessible.
Totally. How would you I was going to say subscribe yourself. How would you describe yourself, Jackie?
Well, firstly, hi. It's so nice to talk to y'all.
Hi there.
Describe myself or my blog? I guess
yourself.
I am my blog. I kind of get it. Myself?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, I guess just
how tall are you? Let's start there.
Background. I'm sorry, what?
I said, how tall are you? We'll start there.
Yeah, I'm 5'7" on a good day. So, medium build. Kind of big bones, but capable. I'm strong and capable.
Yeah, perfect.
So my background is that I've always been a very creative person ever since I was a kid. Even in high school, I took a kind of wild number of elective classes. I took like six semesters of 3D design, which was a small metalworking class.
Cool.
Like torches and stuff to make rings.
Yeah.
Yeah, I took a couple semesters of ceramics, like drawing and painting. I took a few semesters of. And because of that, I thought when I was, wanting to look at colleges or whatever, excuse me, that I was like, I want to be an interior designer, maybe.
Okay.
And I thought that might be a good way to channel kind of my creativity in a useful way.
Sure.
And I went to the Art Institute, which personally I don't recommend going to. If you can, I had really great teachers, just the whole structure of the businesses.
Sure.
Not awesome because it's a private institution.
Right.
So,
yeah.
They go in and out of being accredited, so that kind of tells you, I think, all you need to know.
Yes.
But anyway, I go there and I'm talking to the sales dude or admissions person, and I'm telling him all about everything that I've made. Like, I like, crafting kind of my own clothes or redoing the shoes that I have
Yeah.
and like woodworking, because that was something I'm kind of like the son that my dad never had. And now my cousin Alex is kind of that person for him to be actually. But I still was I was like that person for my dad. And so I learned how to make a lot of things. I'd help him around the house a lot.
Nice.
So telling this man all about this, and he's like, I think you would actually be really interested in this other program that is just starting here called Industrial Design. And it's all product design. Like it can be furniture, it can be industrial design is just the larger name for product design. Whereas like the art center school in Pasadena has in their industrial program, it's like trans design, so cars, furniture design, and then like consumer products. So you have it actually broken down there. But anyways, I was like, wow, this sounds amazing. So I ended up getting my bachelor's in industrial design, graduated in 2009. So,
interesting.
So that's where I like continued to learn about color theory and composition and things. And at that point, I was not a photographer by any means. Especially I think the other day I shared some photos from my blog from 2011. I was like, this is what this looked like almost 10 years ago. It was really, really bad.
I was looking at those and I was like, oh, that's still how my photos look. When Vegan Yack Attack started, so this was like, because this kind of plays into my, I guess, origin story. But obviously graduating in 2009 was not optimum. We were just starting with that recession. And in Southern California, because that's where I was living for 99% of my life. I live in Vegas now. Yeah. Which you guys know. Yep.
And so I ended up getting a job, which I was very fortunate to, it was a plastic packaging company. So they did clamshell packaging, like for cookies and veggie trays and things like this. Those vacuum form plastic packaging, and they actually manufactured in Los Angeles, which was kind of a very small percentage of companies do that at this point. So I worked there. Unfortunately, my boss was a little unhinged. So I was a temp for an entire year until the company got bought out. So because basically HR was sick of having to fire people that they had just hired on who just wouldn't get along with people. So they're like, you're a temp. And I'm like, oh, this is a really interesting full-time job for a year as a product design engineer. So it was a very interesting moment. And during this, I kind of have these moments where, because we were taught about cradle to grave, which is anything's lifespan, essentially. Like, and that was in college. So talking about products. So like talking about, reusing or repurposing, like having this intent in your design work, which you hope that people have, basically, because not everything is like that, obviously. And that concept really stuck with me. So I was kind of having these moments during my job or even at the tail end of school where I was thinking, oh man, am I going to be designing stuff that people are just going to buy and throw away after a year? Like, this is not what I want to contribute to, but it's also, I love like the problem solving aspect of design. So I want to be helpful for people, but I don't want to encourage or enable convenience for the sake of laziness. Like, I know some things are very convenient for people and they need them. Like, these are, I feel like in design we talk about 1% to 99%, and like designing for like the 99% because you want it to be generally available. Of course, there are specialty products, and there's just, you can't design one thing for everyone. It's not possible.
No.
So that being said, because I just want to make it clear that some people need these convenience products, but a lot of people don't need these like single use or these toys that end up getting thrown away, et cetera, et cetera. So, and in my case, it was like plastic packaging. So it was, we use part virgin material, we use some recycled material, and we what I always thought was really interesting, and I'm trying not to go on a tangent, but it all plays into it, is that...
I think that ship sailed, but I'm loving this. Keep going.
Yeah.
We're already here.
Yeah.
But
We love taking the
always
scenic
found it
route.
interesting. Yeah. I always found it interesting that what ended up either in this case with this company, what ended up costing them less money because it usually ended up being the more sustainable option in what we were doing. So in this case, how can we make a package more rigid by design and like the different angles that it has, etc., using less plastic, which is a cost-cutting measure, but it also saves on storage, it saves on shipping, it saves on all this other stuff. So yeah, we're still using plastic, but it's also recyclable to an extent. In this case, it was PET, so it's like one of the more popular plastics. And anyways, so all these things, and that I thought was interesting in what we were doing. But anyways, the company got bought out, and I ended up working at another job that was completely soul crushing.
Hang on, wait 1 second. Were you already vegan at this point, or did that come later?
No.
Okay.
So at this first job, I had gone vegetarian.
Okay.
So actually, yeah, that was a good. So that was part of it. I was like, let's see. Oh, because I was working full time, I didn't really cook. So my parents both worked full time when I was growing up. I was raised on a lot of convenient stuff like Hamburger Helper and Rice-A-Roni.
Sure.
And, instant mashed potatoes, canned vegetables, like very grateful for what we had growing up, but it definitely was not like the most nutritionally dense food.
Sure.
Which is, I mean, you do what you can. Like, we didn't die, we're okay now, so everyone's good. But yeah, so when I was working full time, I would go and I would buy like lean cuisine and stuff. I'm like, well, this is easy. I don't have to make anything, and then I can just bring it to lunch.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, this food is mediocre as hell. Not good. And I'm paying like $6 a serving for it.
Yeah, which is not that
depending
cheap.
on the cost. No, they're not. You're really paying for the convenience, but not necessarily quality.
Yeah.
And certainly not, like, there were some things I'm like, ooh, this was my favorite. Like, I was that adult at the age of, like, 22 or 23. I was like, do I have this favorite lean cuisine? I was like, you know what? I need to teach myself how to cook more than maybe just some of the basic stuff that I know.
Okay.
And I started making some recipes on all recipes and things like that. And at the same time, because this is kind of when Tumblr started. So I had just a personal Tumblr account. And so honestly, I don't know how this happened, but like it crossed my feed of someone talking about home and beauty products. And how they're not necessarily super regulated. Right. Yeah. Something you guys are very familiar with. And that was actually more my segue into like vegetarian and veganism at the beginning.
Interesting.
So it really was like this, because I knew some vegan people, just not a lot.
Yeah.
And I kind of was like, whatever. Like, I didn't hate on it, but I was like, I don't know. Don't really care. Like, don't really have any feelings about it.
Totally.
And especially because some of them were like doing like mono meals and stuff. And I'm like, I'm not going to eat 30 bananas. Like, that's not what's going to happen for me.
I didn't know there was a name for that.
Being said, well, yeah. Right.
I remember when that was so big, and I was thinking about like, who's going to be the person sitting in their office break room eating 10 mangoes, or like to your example, 30 bananas? God. Like, do people do that? I don't know.
And honestly, the idea of that makes me want to gag alone. Like I just couldn't. And that is, well, and I'll address that again in a second. But anyways, yeah. So it was this kind of like a funneling of all this information that ended up equaling out to me being like, oh, you know what? I should probably be vegan or vegetarian. I started with vegetarianism, and but I still didn't like buy dairy for my house. So I would eat cookies at work because we would get packages sent in for testing of like, because that's the strength of the package. But now we have a dozen oatmeal cookies, so I'm going to eat one because I love sweet. Yeah. So that was like my vegetarianism, and that was about 6 months. And during those 6 months is when the company had gotten bought out. Because I was a temp, I was like, I need to find another job. I don't think I can even get unemployment.
Sure.
Found another design job that was terrible and so soul-sucking. And during that job is when I went vegan and was also posting small recipes and stuff on Tumblr. Because at that point, I'd been making some recipes from All Recipes, you know, and other food sites for a few months. And I was like, I think I can kind of branch out and do some of my own things now.
Sure.
Or some stuff inspired by. And then it was that summer, so July of 2011, is when Tumblr reached out to me and said, oh, you have original content, which is a very low percentage on that. Then it was a higher percentage. Now it is like absolutely almost non-existent. But you have original content that people are engaging with. We would like to feature you in our food section for Tumblr.
That's
so I was
awesome.
just like parked there as a profile. And that was, and like I said, I had started as a personal account. So it was just Yack Attack. Yeah. And I was like, okay, I guess this is my blog name now. Just like, this is what I'm doing. And that is from my name, Jackie. Right. Because I worked in a restaurant for a few years as a server. And my full name is Jacqueline. The tickets in the back of the restaurant would print up as Jacqueline, but it would cut off the N and the E, so it's Jacqueline. And because we had chefs from like El Salvador and Mexico and stuff, they would call me Jacqueline. Yeah. And so that was the handle I was using on personal stuff at the time. Yeah. And so because of that handle, I had a couple friends that would call me Yack Attack as opposed to like Jack Attack.
Sure.
And that's why I had just made my Tumblr that name. So once I was featured in that section and I started getting like hundreds and hundreds of followers each day, because this is when Tumblr was like popping. And I ended up talking to my mom has a bunko friend, of course.
What's a bunko friend?
And so bunko is a dice game that I feel like suburban moms play, which is really fun, like, and super easy. It's really great. Like, in other times, I would consider having a younger group of people doing a bunko game, because it's really fun. It's just an excuse to like get together once a month on a Friday or whatever. Corey. Sorry, Corey's making all kinds of noises.
Come on, Corey. Jeez Louise.
So you get together, make dinner, or whatever, play a dice game, and it's gambling because you put money in usually, so whoever wins like it's money.
Got it.
Yeah, so she had a bunko friend who was a DIY blogger who had been blogging for a couple of years. She's like, I think you should talk to Vivian and ask her some input for your blogging stuff, which is great because she was the first person to be like, you need to make an account on, I think Pinterest was just getting started. And she's like, you need to be on Pinterest. You need to basically make an account on like whatever social media you're going to be on, make a name for it. You probably shouldn't be on Tumblr. You should have a self-hosted website because that's going to be like the most leverage for you essentially and the best way to run it.
Sure.
And then here are some other things to look at. So that was, and it being very helpful. I started a self-hosted website, but I didn't launch it until the fall. And that's when I bought the domain. I couldn't buy yackattack.com because it was taken. So it was, but it wasn't.
What was
there was
that?
no site on it.
Okay. It wasn't like a blog about yaks in Canada attacking people.
No.
That's too bad.
And sorry. And it when I went to it, it just showed kind of like when you have a GoDaddy site that doesn't have a site on it, it just shows like the GoDaddy page. Except this was like a Chinese page.
Oh,
for like nothing. So it's like, well, I don't know what this is. I'll just add vegan to the front because I'm vegan now.
Yeah.
And, you know, I do
Perfect.
recipes that are vegan. So
Yeah.
this is what it's going to be.
What year
In
was
hindsight,
this?
like this is still in 2011.
Mm-hmm.
So
Oh, okay.
it was like mid 2011.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's
And
the timeline of this is really fascinating because I think we've only hung out with you once in person.
And I think twice.
yeah, I
Twice?
was at Veggie Grill in Long Beach.
Once or
Yeah.
twice? Okay.
Yeah.
I
That was
remember Veggie Grill
forever ago.
specifically.
But like it's just
Yeah,
crazy
it was
because
a long time ago.
in my memory you were already so established when
Yeah.
Logical Harmonies kind of started gaining traction, but in reality it was kind of around the same time.
Yeah, it was around the same time, but I think okay, so when I first ran into Jackie online, what stood out to me is it felt like your recipes were a mix of healthy food and food for like regular people. Versus at the time, what was so trendy was still like the mono meal stuff, the dieting, that sort of thing.
It was
Yeah.
like unrealistic or like not tasty
or
like
really expensive, like not stuff that was easily accessible
Yeah.
to the average person. And we both have a very deep love of buffalo sauce. So like that was, yeah.
huh. Okay.
Oh,
so
yeah. Love buffalo sauce.
so you got Vegan Yack
Yeah,
Attack.
and that was kind of my like I hadn't thought about it when I was doing it because I'm like, I'm just gonna make the food that I want to eat, which is I'm veganizing stuff that I already liked or thought I might like. And honestly, though, when I was first vegan, I ate like 60% raw, but it was mostly here's just like some chopped up stuff for work. Of like here's a salad, here's a fruit thing, here's some soaked nuts, whatever, and then occasionally I would get into here's a dehydrated zucchini, flax, lentil, like shredded lentil.
Yeah.
So I would get sushi sometimes, but I think from the beginning I've always wanted to be approachable. Like here are some recipes that may just take a little bit more time for like those that are into food like I am, because I was like I did not eat as good a food as I ever did until I went vegan, because I wasn't trying everything. Like I would eat at Carl's Jr. and Taco Bell all the time, you know? Like I was garbagey. Like I was
That's so
not
funny.
great. So and with Logical Harmony, I remember coming by your friend and be like, oh, this is perfect, because like I said, had already been trying to get to more like natural stuff, but having an actual reference for finding vegan products. Because like for me, I tell people to just do things at their pace, but when I adopt things, I'm like, no, I'm vegan. Like, no, I'm vegan. I don't eat honey because I don't consider that vegan. But I hold myself to a different standard that I'm not going to hold most people to.
Sure.
And so, when a huge thing of my veganism was environmental reasons. Like, that's why I was talking about all the sustainability stuff was, farming does this. Not ideal, not really what I want to contribute to. If I eat this way, this is better for the planet. It's not like, this end all of anything, but it makes my choices a little bit easier. And then eventually animal welfare came into it, because that really wasn't like a strong part of it at the beginning. Animal and worker welfare.
Totally.
It's all about like learning, and I always like learning. But for me, I'm like, damn, I want to be doing like the best that I can in any way that I can. So I've had reusable grocery bags and stuff, and even produce bags since like 2010. Like, this is stuff for me where I'm like, I've been doing this for a long time. And so, when I'm breaking out my bamboo, like silverware at a party, because they have plasticware. So that happened at Christmas, and someone was like, oh my God, you're like, and I was like, dude, I've been doing this for years. So you just do it at your own pace. Like, this is stuff that, I've picked up along the way, but I've had a head start for a lot of people that are getting into it now. And just like you, Tashina, with like the products and everything, it's like now people care more about finding like cruelty-free things and vegan ingredients and stuff like that. But it's been really interesting to see how it's gone over the last, decade. And it's wild for me to say decade even, because I'm like, my background's as a designer. Like, I designed for 2 years. I've been doing this for like 10 years now.
Yeah, it's super weird. Like, it goes so quickly.
Yeah.
And to you, I think since you're in it and it's your day to day, you're like, oh, it hasn't been that long and I don't really do that much. And then you look at it and you're like, oh, wait, this is bigger than I thought.
Yeah.
Like,
I always think about that with me and Logical Harmony, and I'm like, oh yeah, this thing that Tashina's doing that I'm kind of a part of. And then it's like, oh wait, no, I've been involved in this for the majority of the time that it's existed, at least in its current form.
Yeah.
That's so weird.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I know, and I couldn't believe, just to say this really quick, that like y'all were doing as much work as you were doing while Tashina was also working her other job for as long as that was happening.
Yeah, she was
crazy.
She would get up before the sun rose, work on Logical Harmony, walk in the dark to the train, take
hour and a half commute each
hour
way.
And a half commute each way. Come home and then like work on it some more, and then just like all weekend, every weekend.
Yeah,
like,
it was brutal.
When I think about how much we work now compared to how much we worked like 10 years ago, I'm like, how did we even live?
It was all I did though.
It was.
I didn't do anything outside of work.
We need to get back to that, both of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, when I think about when I was working full time and I first started blogging, was doing just small stuff on Tumblr, because it'd be like, oh, here's a small recipe. I didn't write much with it, maybe just a little paragraph or something. I didn't even have an about page on my site for the longest time, because I'm like, who cares? And then people started asking me for it, and I was like, why?
Yeah,
who cares?
That's funny.
Just make the food. But yeah, I was working in almost downtown LA, and I lived in Orange County, so it would be, oh, here's a cool hour commute each way of me driving, and then I was still posting like twice a day on Tumblr these little recipes and stuff, and it was like every day. I'm just like, how? I do one blog post a week. Like now, they're definitely more involved, but I'm like, damn, how did I do that?
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
I mean, also, I'm glad that I'm not doing that anymore.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I think too. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say the quality barrier back then was a lot lower for every type of content.
True.
Oh, sure.
And I think that made it a lot easier. Because back then it's like, okay, hardly anyone had nice cameras, and what was a nice camera back then is not great now. And there just wasn't that same expectation. Like you could put up a recipe post with one photo and it was fine.
Oh yeah, that's exactly what I did for the most part.
Yeah.
Like, here's lasagna, you can kind of see it.
Yeah, exactly. And it worked. And people were like, oh, sweet, I can figure this out. This is close enough for me to know what it should resemble.
Well, when the other option is having to go find a cookbook.
Yeah.
And back then, maybe I'm remembering this wrong, but I sort of feel like, and I'm sure a lot of this is true today and there's a cost involved, but it seemed like a lot of recipe books back then didn't have a lot of photos. Like I just...
No, they didn't. I mean, and that's, I think publishing went through a time where it's like people didn't necessarily care about having photos in their books. I feel like now it's 100% different.
Totally.
Like, it's so different.
I'm way more likely to make a recipe
insane.
if there's a photo of it.
That's so funny.
I mean,
and like when I go to a restaurant, I'm more likely to buy something that has a photo in the menu.
Interesting. But for so long.
I want to know what it looks like.
Or when you think about really classic cookbooks, like the Molly Katzen cookbooks, the Moosewood series, or like even the Joy of Cooking, they had there were illustrations in there, like especially the Molly Katzen ones,
weird clip art turkey or something.
Yeah, or it was like hand drawn illustrations of mushrooms, like
the turkey.
Yeah, and like that was good enough for so long.
I also didn't realize that you and I lived in Southern California I mean, you grew up there, so you were already there, I guess, but I didn't realize that I lived there when you were there.
Yeah.
I never made that connection. In fact, I don't know that I made any connection
until now.
Yeah.
What part did you live in?
I lived in Long Beach. So like when I saw your phone number, your area code, I was like, oh, crazy. Yeah. From like 2007 till 2010. So, yeah. I don't know if you ever went out to Long Beach, but
I was drunk a few of those years.
Oh, okay. Got it.
That's when I was going to school in Costa Mesa. So I spent a lot of time in like Central to South Orange County. Hanging out with all my friends from the Midwest. I lived in California at that point.
Did you ever hear about
and then what am I?
Outer Limits, the tattoo shop in Costa Mesa?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so Outer Limits, I worked at their sister shop in Long Beach. So, anyway, just a fun little connection there. Sorry. So you were saying?
No, I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I don't remember what I was saying.
Your friends in the Midwest, hanging out, drunk for a couple years, going to school.
I was thinking, that's what I was doing during school. It was like going to school and then hanging out with them. But that was the end of that.
Got it.
I was going to say, when I met Corey in 2008, then my drinking cut down significantly. Because I was like still in party age, like very young. So I was like 21. And, but honestly, I'm probably going to have a kid. This is totally kind of random, but like when I think about what I did when I was like 15 to 21, I'm like, damn, I would not want my kid to do that, even though I was so responsible. Like I didn't do anything that was like negligent or too wild, but like I'm like, oh, just the thought of that makes me kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But anyways, Corey is like sober crew, so
I didn't know
when
that.
we started hanging out, I was like, all right, yeah, he was in the hardcore scene, so he actually has like straight edge tattoos,
Got
but
it.
he just says that he's sober now. He's not like all X'd up all the time or anything like that. But yeah, because he worked at Chain Reaction from when he was like 15 to 18 or 19. So yeah, he was like, that's when hardcore was like kind of big in Orange County.
Dang.
So yeah. So when we started hanging out, which we met through riding 6-gear bikes, by the way.
Oh, snap.
That, yeah.
Wow,
So
this
Southern
is so funny
California.
because we totally would have been friends back then. Like, I didn't drink or smoke or do anything like that
And
back
you had
then.
your fixed gear.
I mean, I still have it.
do.
But like...
Yeah, I know that you still have it.
I basically
I still have one.
That's so funny.
Okay.
I wonder if you
So
guys
maybe
were
we
ever
should just
at
move
some
to
of the
Vegas.
same things and just didn't know.
I would do,
That's so funny.
what was the monthly bike ride?
The Wolfpack Hustle?
Big? No, oh my God, I would not do that.
Yeah, me either. I was never in good enough shape for that one. Yeah.
No, just like oh God, I can't remember the freaking name of it, but like the one where, you just get together on like a Friday afternoon or whatever, and there would be one in Long Beach, there's one in like Orange County. Critical Mass.
Oh, got it. Yeah, I don't know if I ever...
So we would do Critical Mass. I would do the Long Beach one a few times, actually, of Critical Mass. And I met a few friends that way. But yeah, so this is very funny. But I've seen that you ride your fixed gear bike, and I'm like, oh yeah, I did that. Like, I should probably ride it occasionally, but I don't. So,
the weather's so beautiful out here right now. It's like hard to not want to just be on my bike all day.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, I've just been pulling weeds in my backyard in the sun, which is honestly very rewarding.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bet.
Because it gets some vitamin D, and I'm cleaning the yard because the weeds here just get absolutely out of control, and they're all on rocks. And so, like the landscaping rocks, so that you can't like just mow them or something. It's very intense.
Because you have a really good garden set up there, right?
It's good. It's taken some work because I would garden in Southern California, which is literally the easiest place to garden in my experience.
Yeah.
Like 1 year, I hadn't gardened for a couple of years, and I was like, you know what? I think I want some winter stuff. I'm just going to throw this like assortment of seeds at the ground, and I'm going to water it, and then I'll water it every few days and see if anything happens.
Yeah.
And I literally grew like kale and collard greens, and then I think some carrots or something.
I love that.
Like this. Gosh, I miss how easy that was. Luckily, there are a few Las Vegas gardening groups on Facebook. So,
Nice.
and I have a couple friends out here that are like vegan and they garden and stuff. So I talked with them. We thought that we would be buying a house this year, which we've kind of put on hold for now. So I didn't start any seedlings in like January or seeds. I just overwintered my tomato plants and use bell peppers and stuff. I like just covered them and was like, we'll hope for the best. And they're growing again. So I'm kind of glad that I had that happen.
Yeah.
But I also wish I had a little bit more in the garden. I just hadn't really planned for it to be here and like be like, oh, I'm going to be doing this. So I might start some more seeds. I've ordered some seedlings on Seed Savers, which is like a heirloom and organic seeds, and the Seed Savers because they like to keep like lineages of seeds going and like contribute to seed banks and stuff.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so they sell seedlings. I don't know when they're going to ship, like because it kind of is whenever they're ready there.
Yeah.
But I bought some from them last year, and I still have some of them in the garden. So it's like that's kind of an easy shortcut for me to not go anywhere and have some.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so getting back to your origin story.
I'm good on sidetracking.
I think it was me that took us off track, but yes,
it doesn't matter.
But you are good at it. I don't mean to take the credit. You're great. So, catch us up to when did you get into photography, and then how did your first book come about? Because you're on your third or fourth book right now.
So the last one that came out was my third one.
Okay.
I don't plan on doing any more anytime soon.
Okay.
I have like a passion one that I would like to do, but that I'm not really putting pressure on. My first cookbook, though, the way that came about, because I wanted to do a cookbook at one point. It not only to just have it be there, but it's also even though at my first cookbook, I'd been blogging for like 4 years already.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until that was published that I then got asked to like speak at things or do demos at events and things like that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of just like a resume builder, as well as having like, oh, it's cool to be published. Like that's neat in its own right.
Yeah.
And then because I do food photography for other people and other cookbooks, I obviously did my own food photography. But the publisher had come to me in 2015 asking if I wanted to do a cookbook. And I was like, yeah, I do. But I wanted it to be like generally a Vegan Yack Attack book. And they're like, that's not specific enough because they have a lot of vegan titles. And they're like, what about bowls? And I was like, okay, like that's a thing right now. So I can do some bowls, but in hindsight, like I love that book and there's some really good stuff in that book.
Yeah, there is.
But I think, and it turned out very unique in the way that like I was not a bowl person before. I was fine with them, but I didn't make them all the time. So I was like, I'm going to make bowls how I want to make them, with biscuit nachos.
Yeah.
I love it. Some other stuff that's like has no place being an actual bowl recipe, but so delicious. And I tell people like, if you buy that book, buy it for the sauces alone. Like even if that was like your baseline, because they're all super easy to make. It's usually a blender situation. Maybe a pan is involved after. And then you get this like litany of sauces and condiments for this whole cookbook. And then you can decide if you want to make the rest of the recipe or not. There's some really good foundation stuff in there.
Yeah.
But it was definitely an interesting experience. Like looking back at it, being like, wow, that is not what people had expected necessarily, but I also didn't feel comfortable at the time being like, here, let me sell you recipes that are a roasted chickpea with kale, a sweet potato, and quinoa. Like that is on Instagram all day. Like I don't need to tell you that. So that's why I didn't really go that route with that book. I tell people like, that's not the beginner book. It's easy enough. It just takes some time for some of the components.
Sure.
But it's more like novice to intermediate for vegans. Like you would need to be a novice vegan already to like have most of the stuff or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's pretty easy to still get. The second cookbook, because I wanted to do a camping cookbook. That's actually like my passion project. Is like what I would do that I would like co-author with someone.
Oh, that sounds so
and
rad.
I know, and I had proposed that to my publisher in 2017, early, because it was just under a year after Vegan Bowl Attack came out, and I was like, "You guys are asking me for another cookbook? Like what?" And So I proposed that, and they're like, no, that's too niche. And I'm just, in my mind, I was like, no, dude, like, it's not.
No, fam.
Making vegan food while you're camping is the easiest because you don't have to worry about, like, weird food temperatures or, like, storing stuff and having it be, like, actually maybe slightly deadly if you don't have it at the right temperature for, like, you know, like chicken, you have to have bleach and stuff typically to clean and things like that. So, and I'm like, and I can go to REI and buy dry pack meals that say vegan on them. I don't understand how this is so niche. Like, so,
I love this concept. So you are working on this right now, though?
No.
I thought you were saying this is the passion project you're currently working on.
It's a passion project that I have, like, the stepping blocks, but I'm like, no, it's off. It's just off in the distance for when that opportunity kind of like presents itself a little bit better.
Got it.
Yeah.
But that's what I had proposed to my publisher.
Okay.
Like I said, they said, too niche. Let's do something like maybe on the go. And I was like, all right, well, how about this? Instead of it just literally being portable food, it is also like on the go in two respects. We have some stuff that is portable, like lunches, that you can bring to work or whatever. And then here's stuff for just like life that is faster. And so that's how the second book, Vegan Yack Attack on the Go, came about. And that was definitely like super beginner friendly. And honestly, I've been cooking stuff either inspired by or just straight out of that cookbook a lot lately. Like there's so many pantry friendly recipes in there. I was like, wow, this is great.
Yeah. And I feel like there's,
I've written so
go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's so many elements, maybe not so many, but there's definitely elements of that camping feel in there too, with like the foil packets and things like that and stuff you can just throw on the grill or in charcoal, like, and I think that's super helpful.
Yeah, so there's that little chapter. There's a like little chapter of like a testing kind of like, here, we're gonna have this little bit in here for like on the move is that chapter. So stuff that you can kind of semi prep at home and then finish wherever you're going. And people have really liked that chapter. So and I feel like that book, it makes me a little sad because it is a great cookbook. And then my publisher came to me maybe 4 months after that was out and was like, hey, let's do another cookbook. So I just didn't really have the proper time to promote it as much as I did my first book. So it felt like it didn't get as much attention as it probably should have because it's like so helpful. But still in the traditional format of like a cookbook. So then when they came to me about the meal prep one, I was like, oh man, I've been avoiding meal prep for years because it's you know, it's the same reason why anybody just doesn't like put together their own menu because you're like, this is kind of a headache. Like it kind of is. It's a lot of work.
The reason people need the book is the same reason you don't want to have to do it.
right. I didn't want to write it initially, and then I was like, but you know what? Is that like I've been seeing people cook for my other two cookbooks and saying that they're, you know, including those recipes in their meal plans and stuff for the week. So this, I was like, I know that this would be very helpful. And the problem-solving aspect, kind of like what I was talking about with design, I was like, okay. And that's honestly what kind of, like, what I really loved about, and still love about vegan cooking from the beginning was, I need to think about how I'm going to make this way and have it be either like a traditional thing or like whatever. So I really like that kind of mental engagement with the recipe as opposed to like, oh, here's your cornerstone protein and then your grain and your vegetable or whatever, like how a lot of people are just end up cooking. So, anyways, the meal plan book, or meal prep, rather, that, I feel like we signed a contract for that in October of 2018. So, the years are just passing by. So I had told them, like, hey, I'm not working on this until after the holidays because, like, it's the big time. I mean, I imagine even for you guys, like, the holidays, it's a big time for blogging and social media stuff and sponsored collaborations and things. And I was like, cool, I'll work on this in January. And it was due at the end of April. So it's like 4 months.
That's fast.
Yeah, and I have recipes. Yeah. And and I have like recipe testers. I do that for every book where I have like 25 recipe testers. They like every recipe gets tested 3 times at the very least.
Are these friends of yours or people that your publishers find? Like, where do these recipe testers come from?
Oh, no. So my publisher is not super large. So there's a lot that I take on.
Sure.
Like I even do the book map. So I do the actual, like the designation of what goes on each page.
Sure.
Like I do that. They just hand it off to the designer who then plugs it all in and then does like some of the more like layout specific stuff. Yeah. So there's a lot that I'm involved in this process.
Wow.
But with the recipe testers, what I usually do, and I'm so immensely grateful for these people. I've had a few that I've tested for all 3 cookbooks, but usually what I'll do is I'll put out a survey at, I guess, like halfway through the cookbook process for me, which is usually a few weeks before it's due. So I'll be like, hey, I'm looking for people to make 3 to 5 recipes a week from a set list of recipes. Give me your feedback. And, at the end of this, I will have a book sent to you so that you'll have, this free cookbook that you participated in. And some people just love food so much that they will volunteer to be a part of it. And then, and I'm very upfront about the exchange. Like there's no things hidden to be like, oh, hey, I got you in here, by the way, I'm not paying you or anything. Like I'm, if you want to do it, great. If not, totally fine as well. But I put a survey together that asks, like where they are, like their location.
Okay.
Their level of cooking. So like beginner, novice, intermediate, professional. I have a professional. So like working in a restaurant or like doing maybe a professional blog or something for a long time, or another cookbook author. And then like a really good, but not a pro. So that, and then, I feel like there's a couple other questions in there, but I tried to get a diverse group of people. So I'll usually grab people from like all over the world, depending on where they're at, and then definitely levels of experience, because I want beginners and I want like a professional.
Absolutely.
So because everyone's gonna, everyone's all over the place that ends up buying the book, right? So it ends up being really helpful. I have like a blog that I organize everything through, and then, like I said, it ends up being maybe 20 people by the end of it, but it still is a lot of testing that happens. And, a lot of good feedback and stuff. So that process is usually like 5 weeks long. I end up doing like 20 recipes per week. So each book has like 105 recipes in it. Yeah. So it's a thing. The cookbooks are a lot of work, and that's why I'm kind of on pause for now. Because I end up neglecting my blog and those kind of like free recipes, even though there's, I'm looking at it right now, I guess it's almost 700 recipes on the blog. So there's plenty of content there from over the years, but I still don't like to neglect it. So it's been good, and that book was a monster. Because did you guys get your copy? I can't remember.
No, I think
we sort of think that maybe maybe it might have not gone to the right address because we moved so recently.
Well, the last one was sent to an old address to begin with, and we were able to go pick it up, but it was sent to your last one was sent to an address that we hadn't lived at for like 2 years at that point.
Well, did we not tell Jackie that happened?
I don't remember. It was a few years ago.
Maybe I just announced the new address. But this one, I don't know. I know that some people just haven't gotten them. But I'll let you guys know how the book is broken down. But anyway, and maybe I'll just send you a copy from my house. Is probably what's going to happen. So
exciting! Thank you.
When I first signed the contract, I asked everybody on Instagram and like Facebook, like, hey, what are your struggles with meal prep? Not like what do you like, but like what are you really having problems with? And there was a lot of people that wanted kind of like, hey, I just need something for like one person, or like I have an issue with this kind of thing, and whatever.
Yeah.
It ended up being very helpful because, like I said, I'm not, food is my job. There will be weeks where I'm like just eating cake because that's like what I'm working on. And then there are weeks where, and I'm just like, hey, lunch is like a handful of peanut butter pretzels. Like, this is what's happening. So,
I wish we had an excuse for when we have weeks like that. It'd be nice to say, there's a reason behind this.
I'm testing the effectiveness of different skincare. Come on.
No, I meant the food we're eating.
I know. I meant I have to come. Never mind.
No one actually needs an excuse. It's all right. But in those cases, meal prep probably would have been helpful for me. I just hadn't really thought about it. So it ended up being very insightful. And what I ended up doing is breaking the cookbook into a couple parts. So the first part is the intro, and it has like your pantry basics that like I recommend having and stuff, and kind of tools and things, which is what I did in my second book as well, because that's also for beginners. And then the first cooking part is 6 menus that are weekly meals for one. Because when I thought about it, I was like, wow, I don't know that many people that are bulk cooking for like 4 people.
Yeah.
It's usually 2 or maybe just themselves. And so I was like, all right, this one will be like your super beginner meal prep where it's 3 entrees that make 5 servings each. Nice. And then you have usually 1 or 2 snacks that you have. So that has you set for the whole, like your business week, your 5 days. Because like prepping stuff for longer than that kind of gets weird.
Yeah.
And so that's, like I said, like that meal prep for one. And then where it got a little bit more hairy was, and those ones have shopping lists.
Nice.
And then the recipes are just with each menu up in the front of the book.
Okay.
Where it got a little hairier was the second half where it was mix and match menus for 2 or more. So it's 5 menus that are for 2 people. And so it ends up being about 10 recipes a week. Because you end up having like leftovers of these 4 serving recipes that you split between days. And it's another 5-day setup. So you get a couple snacks, your few different entrees, and then I give you a day 0 prep instruction. Those I don't have shopping lists included because they would literally take up like 5 pages in the book and the real estate is very essential in the book.
Sure.
So those ones not so much, not as specific in that way. But here's this instruction for like what you can make on your day 0, and then here's what else you'll be making just as the week is going along because it's easier to do it the day of or whatever. So it's really clearly broken down, but those recipes are not with each menu. Then they're in the third part where they're just organized by recipe type. So basically you have the option to use the cookbook as like 3 different ways. You can go really beginner, weekly menu for one. You can do the mix and match, or if you just want to make a 4-serving recipe, the rest of the cookbook is organized like breakfast, lunch, dinner, high protein. There's a chapter that's sheet pan meals with instant pot and freezer meals. And then there's a few, I think I have like 5 kids recipes in there. What I meant to say was one of the mix and match menus is for 4. So it's like a big menu of like, here's lasagna, here's these instant pot things. And then one of the menus is just lunch and dinner and a snack, and it's for 2 adults and 2 like children, young children.
And the children's stuff or the kids menu, is that, I mean, I think I already know the answer to this, but is that recipes for children to eat, or is it recipes that children are also probably capable of making?
Oh, they could probably make them as well. Like, it definitely is young children. It's not like a 10-year-old would maybe be super interested in it.
Oh, okay.
Like, I think, like, kind of middle of, like, elementary school, or just all of elementary school. So there's, like, a little sushi bowl, and those recipes share components with some of the adult recipes that are in that menu. So, for example, there's like a mushroom onion burger that would be the adult one. And then if you 1.5 that recipe for the patties, you make little sliders with the rest of them with like sweet
cute.
potato fries for the kids.
That's
Cute.
awesome.
So yeah, so it's pretty well integrated to like shortcut for the lunch and dinner, and then let's do a few snacks like little pancake sandwiches and things like that. So I'm pretty like, this is the most helpful book in my opinion in terms of like, here's everything laid out for you. Like, it was definitely the most work, but I'm super, super happy with how it turned out. Especially because we had to cram it into a few less pages than the other books, and it's like a few thousand more words and more pictures. So there's littler pictures, like they're smaller in some of them, but it's still like, I think 80 recipes have photos out of the 105-ish.
Oh, wow.
That's still a lot.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah.
Wow.
Man.
Okay, so first of all, Tashina and I, as soon as we heard this concept months ago when you first announced it, we were like pretty excited about it.
Yeah, I think it's great.
And it's something that Tashina's been talking about wanting to do for years. Me, I haven't been super concerned with meal prep, but I say that, but then I'm also the person who will make a pot of beans that will last me a week and a half, and a huge thing of a Spanish rice that'll last me a week and a half, and then I'll just eat those two things for the rest of my life.
And I think we were coming from different sides. So like when I was very heavily into Tone It Up, they do a weekly meal plan and you meal prep on one day.
So expensive.
It was so expensive, but also all the recipes made like 6 servings, but then you would only have on the weekly meal thing, they'd be like 2 servings of something.
Yeah, and that was all.
So you always had to do all this weird math. It was all based around
weight loss too, or at least like massively cutting back the calorie intake that I am used to. Like right before this call, we had a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and I was thinking about the amount of peanut butter that I was putting on the sandwich, and I was like, okay, on a scale of how much peanut butter, if somebody asked me, how much peanut butter do you want on your sandwich? I would say choking hazard. That's the level of peanut butter that's on this. And then we like.
So we're talking like a quarter cup of peanut butter, or like 3 tablespoons maybe. I think it's like a tablespoon and a half.
However much you would put and be like, this is too much, probably like double that.
Yeah.
And then
go ahead.
And then we had like frozen curly fries, and this is like
it was a mess today.
It was a mess, but it's also not super atypical for us. So then to do these super expensive meal plans that were like very calorie restricted, it was like I was hungry constantly.
Yeah, and the food was good, but it was like we just have different approaches. Like I really liked the structure of it. And I love being able to follow, like you look at it and you're like, okay, everything's set. I don't have to think about it. But to your point, it was the fact that they weren't things for smaller portions of people, like not smaller portions of people, but trying to figure out the math behind a lot of it was really challenging. And then you'd end up with all these leftover ingredients.
Yeah, that was the other thing.
And you're like, what am I doing with this?
It was like they didn't take into account how much they told you to buy. And so you'd use, just as a random example, use half a bell pepper on Monday, and then there's no other bell pepper recipe. And it's like, okay, I can cut a bell pepper up and eat it. But it seemed like every recipe was like that, where it's like, now I have all this random stuff. Wasn't the point to be able to like use everything?
Yeah, but I think people have really different approaches to meal prep too. To that point, like my version of meal prep like was structured like that, whereas Justin's like, I'm gonna cook 2 pounds of beans. So it's like I think it sounds like yours is more like a meat in the middle type thing for people too.
We're excited.
It absolutely is. Like my focus with this book was like it's kind of funny because it's like, all right, we're doing meal prep, but we're gonna do it in my style. So your food is gonna be really good. Like I do appreciate simple meal prep where it is like which first of all like your beans and rice with tamales right now is like killing me. Like I absolutely need rice tamales this week.
You just made them for the first time this last year, right?
Yeah, in December.
That's so exciting.
I was like, I'm just going to make a bunch of tamales. So I still have some corn husks, and I have like a ton of masa from before. The masa's like pretty old, so it's not like the best, but I need to use it, and I'm going to make some corn tortillas to freeze later.
Nice.
But anyway, I'm like, we're going to do meal prep that's not like your super simple stuff, because I feel like there's a lot of different people that offer that. That's not really my style. Is my style is a way of like bastardizing your favorites a little bit to make them more accessible and a little bit easier to make. And so that is like the fine line of that I was walking, where I'm like, all right, here's how we can make these dishes. Let's make them a little bit easier, or like, here's a few ingredients maybe taken out. Here's a couple steps we've cut. Like, I have a bouillabaisse recipe in there, which is a fancy French dish. Like, it is,
it is
a process. And I'm like, here, let's make it in an Instant Pot. And also, there's no seafood obviously in it, so it's mushrooms and stuff. And so there's some things like that. Actually, a lot of things kind of like that are like, here's how we can really pare this down, but still have it be a texturally interesting, like an interesting flavor combination, however else to like make it layered. Because like I said, like I love food. So I am not the person that's like, here, give me just baked tofu with broccoli and brown rice. Like, although I can eat that for like lunches where
especially
I'm like,
with the right sauce,
with tahini sauce on it. Yeah. Give me the smoky tahini sauce from Vegan Bowl Attack, and like game over is going on everything. But that's not what I want this book to be. So I felt that I reached a pretty good compromise in that of like, here's meal prep for foodies that have just a little bit less time, essentially. And I want to do like more plant-based foods and stuff. And I tell people, like, you don't have to make the whole menu. If you do just want to do lunch and dinner and snacks, you know, go for it. If you just want the snacks this week, like, no one's telling you what to do, but here's the guideline if you want to do everything. Like, you don't have to then do math to, you know, continue to make these recipes and things, which that blows my mind about that meal plan a little bit. I'm like, wow, that's not helpful at all. Like, we left you halfway there, and now you finish it. And I make sure that like ingredients that I'm using in the book, even if it's maybe a slightly weirder one, or just something where you're like, oh, maybe I'm not using toasted sesame oil all the time. Well, it's in like 5 recipes in this book, so a lot of the pantry staples and stuff that I'm using that maybe you have to buy a whole bottle or something, like you're going to be able to use it in a bunch of other recipes in the book. And that was really important to me too, because my pantry is full of all kinds of stuff, which I'm very glad that it's a huge pantry, but I shot 2 other cookbooks besides my own last year, and there's so much random food in there. Like, it's just like, if I'm like, oh, I found a smoothie bowl in my freezer, and I found this in my freezer, and like, all this other stuff that I'm pulling out right now, which is all going on my Instagram stories. But you know, I'm lucky that I have this crazy pantry, but also, wow, what am I going to do with this sorghum that was in one recipe in one cookbook that I shot? Like, this is not an ingredient that I typically use. So, I didn't want my cookbook to be like that.
Yeah, I love that.
Have random odds and ends.
It keeps it easy for people who don't have access to much, but also then for people who aren't, maybe they're not vegan, maybe they're just starting out, trying out plant-based, maybe they're doing like Meatless Monday or whatever. Like, it makes it so much easier for them to ease into like, okay, now I can do a week vegan and see what that's like. And it's stuff that they can just get wherever, that they probably already have. Like, I think that's so valuable. Or people who are doing it for health reasons too. Like, it just makes it so much easier. And I think that's something that especially vegan cookbooks are kind of guilty of, is they kind of forget what it's like to be outside of the space, or to not have, you know, maybe you're in a town where there's one grocery store and you don't want to order everything online. So I think that's really powerful and really great. Especially right now too, where it's like, you know, people are more limited in what they can get and in what's available. And so I think like accessibility is key.
It is. And I will say, I mean, because I love using fresh ingredients, so right now it's a little harder to do stuff like that. So there are some recipes that are, you know, a little bit easier to recreate right now than others, for sure. Like, where you're like, oh, here, this salad where it's chopped tomatoes and chopped bell pepper and chopped whatever, and you're like, yeah, maybe not right now. But I've been making sure on my blog and on my Instagram stories to share things that are super helpful, or like shortcuts and stuff. And like I said, like, I've been cooking out of the second cookbook a ton, which I just didn't when you're when you're writing cookbooks, you don't necessarily think of a situation like this where people will just need pantry ingredients, unless you're specifically writing that cookbook. And so it's been really interesting to think of, like, I'm looking at a couple ingredients I have in my house, and I'm like, oh, I can make that one recipe, and I'm like, oh, that's from my second cookbook from Vegan Yack Attack on the go again. Like, I think I've made like 5 recipes or something from it. But otherwise, I just ask people on Instagram, like, hey, what do you have at home that's not inspiring to you anymore? Like, what are ingredients that you're struggling with now where you're like, I've already used it in these purposes. What else can I do with this? And that's how I made the Chipotle brown rice bake last week, which I just finished the last of, which is pretty tasty. It's kind of like Mexican rice with Spanish rice, but a little bit more stuff in it. And because you literally just dump everything in the casserole dish and then you just bake it, like you stir it once halfway through and then just bake it covered in foil. Yeah, it's so easy. And then I'm like, oh, cool. I used my Chipotle and adobo. I used brown rice. We have, you know, some other dried ingredients in here, and then I only use like frozen corn and frozen kale, or you can use spinach. But that has been like kind of fun. Oh, and like tomato sauce, obviously. Oh, and black olives. So like all either canned shelf stable stuff or like grains, and then freezer stuff.
So go ahead.
No, please go.
Well, no, finish that thought, because I'm going to totally change the direction of this.
Okay. I was going to say, that has been giving me some purpose right now to be like again, I really, as much as I love food and just being like, hey, I'm going to make something, and then like hoping you guys like it once I post it on the blog. Some of them are. It's like sourdough chicken and like sourdough biscuits with like the soy curl chicken. I'm like, no, this is an endeavor of like love. Like, I need to just make this happen for myself, and I hope that you guys are into it. But right now, to be like, here's something that's supremely helpful, because like everyone's got to eat. So how can I make this easier for you to figure out something that's not just like going to be boring or whatever? And so that's been pretty rewarding, like in these last few weeks.
That's awesome.
Okay, so I want to jump back to that, because that's awesome and I love it. But I'm going to totally derail us for a second, because I want to know. I want to know how you got into doing your photography, and then how that grew to be a part of what you do now for your living. I'm very curious.
Interesting.
So, and you know what's so funny, when you started that sentence, I was like, oh, he's going to ask about the photo part. So I just felt it.
I mean, it's the kind of the two, from at least from an outside perspective, I think it's the two things that you're really well known for is awesome recipes, but also just beautiful food photography.
Yeah, I definitely think that it's been at that point for like a few years where people can kind of like recognize what I'm shooting, depending on like what it is and what style it's in. So when I first started blogging, I mean, I didn't even think that it was blogging when I first started. I had bought like a Nikon D70, which is very beginner, like consumer level, you know, a Nikon camera 12 years ago, basically. So, but I bought it in 2010, and I was like, oh, I'm going to take pictures of the stuff that I'm making, because now I'm making food. And this was like when I was starting to be vegetarian. And so even though I had taken one photo class in college, that was with an actual like 35 mil, like a film camera. And I used a digital one sometimes, but I like didn't know how to white balance. White balance. And because I was working full time, I was making stuff at night. So I would take these like sweet halogen lit pictures that were just orange of like, and it was during the fall, and all that food is orange or brown anyway. So it was like, here are these not sexy photos of what I was doing. And occasionally I would shoot like on the weekend during the day, so it was a little bit easier. And I would shoot kind of a short focal length, so usually like f4, 3, kind of like depends, 3.2 or whatever. So it was, and with that camera body, I actually ended up buying a macro lens from the start, and that's like still my main workforce.
Oh, nice.
The 60 mil macro lens that I had. Yeah, so I've I probably need to send it in for like some sort of maintenance, honestly. And there's like a random depth spec that's like within the glass that just bothers the hell out of me. But it is what it is. So I've had the same lens for like this whole time.
Yeah.
Wow.
Once you get a nice piece of glass, you can really make it last.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, absolutely. Because you can still buy the manual lenses that they'll still work great. You have to focus it manually. And I'm like, I'm having astigmatism. I don't trust my eyes as much, even though it's a very like slight astigmatism. My prescription is not very strong, but I'm like, I don't trust myself to look through this and actually get what I need and focus. So autofocus all the way, no shame at all.
Nice. But, okay, I use not autofocus. I use focus peaking on my camera to get the little like glowy, sparkly stuff. But yeah, I also don't really trust my eyes. But I don't have astigmatism.
You just don't trust them.
It's just easier.
On Corey's cameras for the most part. But yeah, so that's just what I've been doing. But anyways, once it started getting into that point where like, I was featured on Tumblr and like, I'm going to have this, self-hosted site, I started looking more into like food photography resources and just trying to learn as much as I could. And then eventually I feel like maybe a year or so into that is when I finally learned how to actually white balance my camera.
Got it.
And I was like, this is a game changer. Everything looks like the color it should be. And so just trying to, continue to learn more about that because I wanted my photography to be really good. Like that was like one of those things, kind of like what I was saying with the like, I went vegan, and I'm like, no, I'm like for real vegan. Like I'm not going to have a cheat day. That's not what I'm interested in. But I'm also don't care if anybody else like decides to do that.
Yeah,
it's like, I want to be able to take photos of my stuff, but I want it to be really good.
Absolutely.
It's like when you suck at a video game, right? Like you're kind of like, I don't like this game so much. Like you're like, I just want to be really good at this, and so. That's kind of how I felt about the photography part. And then I knew that translated into, more people looking at it essentially.
Sure.
I tell people like, dude, don't wait till you have the right equipment. Like just do stuff. Like just do it and then work on it as you're going because it's not as big of a deal as you think it is. But I did want my photography to be good.
Totally.
Even when it was still pretty mediocre, just to continue this thought really quick, I had a couple people ask me to take like product photos and stuff. And that's actually when I started working with Vegan Cuts like in 2012.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I remember that.
Are you still working with them?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Crazy.
They
I
didn't
realize they were still around.
Last year, they sold their company. And so there was some like formatting, and I was only doing very minimal photos for them at that point anyway, so that kind of was like, okay, cool. I'll just wait for you guys to like figure out your rebranding, and then if you decide you need more photo work, great. If not, also fine, because it was like a monthly thing. It wasn't a lot, but so it had been like 7 years or something that I had worked for them.
Wow.
Pretty wild.
Yeah.
Okay, so start with the equipment that you already have, but do you have any other tips that you would give to somebody out there who's like, I want to do food photography or really any kind of photography? Is there anything that you feel is like, wow, this really changed things for me? Like this tiny piece of gear or this little tip? Like, is there anything that you feel like just really, really changed everything for you?
So I'll start with the gear that I have. Like I said, when I first started blogging, it was a D70, which is a crop sensor DSLR Nikon. I then went to another crop sensor, so the D7000 after that, because I basically was upgrading like every 2 years ish, like if I could afford it. Because the first couple of years, I was straight up broke. Like I lived at home until a couple years ago, because Southern California is very expensive.
It's so expensive.
So that's why I was able to do what I did when I like quit my job. So I just want to put that out there as like huge privilege for me to be able to like quit my job and be like, I'm going to be broke for a couple years. I'm still like paying what I have to for bills, whatever. But like, oh man, it was rough for probably from 2011 to 2013. It was dire. But I was working a lot of gigs with Corey, like doing merch at shows or festivals and things like that.
Nice.
So I was doing like gig life a little bit because this was before like Lyft and Uber and things. So I just want to put that out there. But every couple years, I would end up upgrading my body, my camera body, and obviously keeping the same lens.
Yeah.
A couple years ago, let's see, I went from the 7000 to the D600, which was like the cheapest Nikon full frame camera body. And then since then, I just got rid of that like last year because I was just kind of like holding on to it. Now I like to have two camera bodies.
Sure.
Mostly for like video to have the option.
So different bodies. Or you just like two angles?
I like having two angles. It doesn't necessarily need to be two different bodies, but since I like to upgrade, I just hold on for the one that I like had last. Use it if I need to. Yeah. And like in case anything happens to the camera body, it's nice to have a backup.
Totally. Yeah, totally.
Professional photography, so I need that. But so at this point, I have a D750, which is a pretty good full frame camera from Nikon, and then I have now the Z6, which is their mirrorless, and that's actually what I prefer to use for video. And now I've been using it almost full time for photography.
Yeah.
The colors on it, I love Nikon colors a lot. Corey has Sony, and his mirrorless, like, because he got that a few years ago, right when mirrorless started coming out.
Yeah.
And for those that are listening and you're like, what are you talking about? So usually in a DSLR camera, there's a mirror that angles up and down when you take a photo. So it's a manual operation. And it puts it on for the sensor that's in it. So that's how it takes the photo. That's why it makes like a kind of clacking noise every time you take a photo, is that and the shutter. So a mirrorless camera is just a computer sensor that's in the back of the lens that intakes the information, and then it's automatically like a computer file essentially, as opposed to like being redirected through a mirror to the sensor and card. So your battery life is usually not as long, but it can be more efficient. And for low light, which is like a Nikon weakness, I would say, in their
Panasonic too, which is what we shoot on. Just for what that's worth for people listening.
Light on mirrorless. But it's because that's the thing is people ask me like, what brand, and I'm like, it doesn't really matter. Like, there are some differences. Like, I don't like Sony color as much as I like Nikon, and that's what Corey shoots, right? Is Sony mirrorless. But I saw that the low light capability on that was tremendous, and then. Also, on Nikon full frames, they don't have auto tracking for video for photos. So, and I was like, okay, but the mirrorless does. So
interesting.
That is also why I bought it. But it's been really great. But generally, that part is not like, if you're just starting out, this is stuff that doesn't necessarily concern you. That's like some camera nerd shit. Pardon the language, but it is cool to have the options, and it's been working pretty well for photo and video. Yeah. So I've been digging that. It is a completely different memory card, and there's one slot. It's actually the XQD. Is that what it is? It's kind of a weird memory card, not like a regular
SD card
in most cameras.
Interesting.
It is super interesting. But really, what matters is like I could have all this equipment and still take terrible photos or just not ideal photos. That's very important to point out.
I have some really nice gear and I take some really bad photos.
I still sometimes take bad photos where I'm like, this just isn't hitting it like how I want it to. Like it's not getting that spot where I thought it would be.
Thank God for Adobe Lightroom. I don't know what I would do without it.
Yeah, and even then, there's some times where I still end up on the other side of a blog post like, this isn't exactly how I wanted it to, like how I had imagined it. So this is fine, and no one else cares this much. But I wish this looked like a little different. Like, what would I have done next time? And now I use a strobe for like 99% of my photography, which has been amazing because my working hours are later in the day. Like I stay up kind of late, I get up kind of late, and I usually end up working in the afternoon and evening, and my kitchen does not have great light past like noon. Yeah. So it's been very nice to have the option for artificial light. Like I started with a really simple, cheap light kit for like continuous light a few years ago. I didn't start using a strobe until 2 years ago, but it's been amazing because I just have a really big for quality, I felt like it was easier to mimic daylight and especially the color because some continuous light, even though it says it's the daylight temperature, it's not quite. And
different brands have different ideas of what daylight looks like too. You're like, wait a minute. Like this is kind of green, like it's got a little tungsten hue to it, even though you told me it was 5,400 degrees. And that is more nerd stuff, but it was also stuff that I learned in color theory, was talking about the temperatures of different colors. So thanks, art school. But anyway, I love the strobe because I can work whenever I want, and it is obviously you can't use it for video. So that is one thing. Like if you're going to be doing both, it's good to have continuous light. But for photography, it's been amazing, like that I can just recreate daylight inside very easily. Yeah. And because that's most, like 80% of my photography is just trying to recreate daylight and make it look like it's next to a window, essentially. Because it makes it a little bit more accessible to the viewer as well, even though I love artsy stuff and I do a lot of that stuff for Veg News. Because I guess I haven't mentioned it, but I have my dessert column with them, and then I do other photography for them outside of that. I didn't realize you had a column with them.
Yeah.
You knew that?
Yeah, I have a recipe column with them.
I mean, I don't know half the stuff Tashina is doing, so this isn't about you.
Yeah, no, the internet. The internet is vast. We're all doing all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Sometimes I even forget to like mention, like, oh, by the way, I'm a columnist for a magazine. But
that's awesome.
Yeah. So
how long have you had that column? Because you've been working with Veg News for years, right?
So once they came back from their like lawsuit thing in 2015 is when they asked me to start with them. Yeah, so
we all remember that
lawsuit shenanigans.
I said we all remember that.
The OG vegans will be like, oh, I remember when Veg News was not out for 2 years, basically. So June 2015 is when I started working with them.
Okay.
Which is a while. I think that it's been almost 5 years.
Did you start your column at that same time, though?
Yeah. I had a dessert column with them ever since then. Yeah,
that's awesome.
I
love dessert.
Thank you. It is good. Yeah, and my photography has gotten much better since I first started with them.
Do you have your first article from? Like, do you have a copy of your first? I'm sure you do, right? So you can look back on those.
Oh yeah, and it's framed because it ended up being a cover photo too.
Oh,
it was
nice.
It was chocolate cherry ice cream sandwiches with pistachio.
I feel like I actually remember that.
I think I pointed it out to you in the store.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I can envision that. Okay, sorry, go on.
So, no, that's fine. So now it's like when they ask for harsh lighting stuff, which is very trendy right now, it's like, here's a hard shadow that looks like direct sunlight. Like I can do that with the strobe, whereas it's not as concise with continuous lighting usually, depending on what you're using. And continuous lighting is not as bright as a strobe because it's basically just a big flash. So it's higher power for a shorter amount of time. So I can use like a longer or a shorter shutter speed, like a faster shutter speed and stuff like that, and still get a lot of clarity and and it's very easy to move around. We have a couple strobes now because Corey is also a content creator, so we have all kinds of gear. Our entire house is basically a studio that we just shoot stuff in.
I love that. That's exactly how it is here.
That's right, exactly. Except that we have two different projects. Although I help him with his occasionally, and he helps me with mine. But I had to kick him out of video stuff, so now I just use two tripods because he's too opinionated. I'm like, no. this needs to be how I want it, not
That's
how
so
you
funny.
want to do it. Like,
Yeah.
so I was like, nah, this isn't working. Or we have to end our working relationship in this way. So anyway,
That struggle
But-
it hits very close to home.
dude, we tried to do like 3 videos together, and we did them, but it was like we almost did not survive them, and
Yeah.
we've been together for 11 years. So
It's the IKEA trip on an
Oh.
empty stomach of
Yeah.
content creation.
oh my god, that was relatable, especially with Corey's empty stomach. I'm like, I can do IKEA empty stomach any day. But
Oh.
yeah, dragging Corey there. But anyway, so just to get outside of all the gear talk, the most important thing I feel like for photos is your lighting. So just making sure that the lighting is good. Like if you have a bright window of indirect light or even direct light, depending on the style that you want, just making sure that the lighting is good and noting where it is actually super important. Like where is your light? Because if like even when I would go out to eat with other blogger friends, we're at a restaurant or something, and I'm like slightly obnoxious in that way where I'm taking photos in the restaurant, but I'm not the one doing it for like 15 minutes. I'm like, cool, we're in here. Like, I'm just going to do this for like 15 seconds.
Sure.
If I get the shot, it is what it is, because firstly, I'm probably not getting paid for it anyway. And like, it would just be nice to have, like, it'd be a nice bonus, where you're like, cool, I have some like content for later. But like, I don't want to be obnoxious and ruin everyone else's experience by being like super distracting. I did have someone ask me once in Michigan, was like, "Oh, so you're doing?" I was like, "It's my job." Like, that was it. Like,
So go away.
Like, I get paid for this. So it was kind of that like flex of like, I was just being a little short because you're trying to make me feel weird about taking photos of food. And it's like, even if it wasn't my job, who cares? If I'm not hurting anybody, like. Who cares?
Yeah.
So, anyways, in a restaurant, though, is like, okay, I'm sitting at a table taking note of maybe where your brightest source of light is.
Sure.
Because sometimes your daylight is not as strong as your other. So, and just not standing in the way of that light. Because I've seen people be like, oh, okay, here, this table looks nice, but now I'm going to get up from my seat and move around the side of it. Oh, but now you're blocking all the daylight that was lighting the table.
Yeah.
And usually I've seen some photos that are front lit that look okay, but I feel like typically what looks best is if the lighting is coming from the side, any side, like the 2 sides, your left or your right, or the back. Like any of that, I guess, 180 degrees is like fair game. Or even, we'll call it 230 degrees. So like closer to
That's
you,
a
but
pretty
just
good...
not right in front.
Yeah.
It's like a Pac-Man. So we'll say it's like Pac-Man. You just want the light to not come from like basically where you're at, or maybe just right off to the sides of that. Anywhere from the side and the back and any angle is more pleasing to see, because it when you have lighting from the front, it ends up flattening out the texture and what you're looking at. You don't get to see the little crevices and maybe
This
like
is
a
so
tofu
helpful.
scramble. It ends up just washing everything out. I'm glad that this is helpful. And honestly, and this is more of a stylistic difference, but it's something that I've noticed. Like, okay, so this is kind of random, but it's very, it's something that's happened more recently. So there's a website called Finding Vegan, which is a really great resource for vegan recipes. Bloggers submit photos of their recipes with like a link to them, and then they get approved depending on the quality and if they're vegan or not, because some people just randomly submit stuff that's not vegan.
Yeah.
Well, the owner of the site is Kathy Batalski, and she has a really large blog, Healthy Happy Vegan Life or Life. But anyways, she's been around for years. I actually used her as inspiration for me when I first started blogging, and she's amazing. But she's had a hard time kind of like keeping up with all the approval. So,
by the way, sorry, I just have to interrupt you real quick. Our cat is laid. I know you just built this bed for the cat, which is adorable. One of our cats right now, we have to pull out this chair so that she can sit right next to Tashina.
I'm
or
sending
she
it
cries.
to you right now on Instagram.
And Applesauce is like on her back, spread out because it's hot as a mother in here. And anyway, I'm noting that so that when you watch this, or if you listen to this back later, this is why Tashina's being silent, is because she had to stop and get a shot of applesauce just being completely ridiculous now.
No, I can't wait to watch this on Instagram later.
So, okay, sorry, the blog.
But yeah, so with the site, last week I volunteered to help Kathy with submissions because the last ones on the page are like from the holidays or just after.
Okay.
And there's like 3,000 submissions that need to be gone through.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so I've gone through, like I've approved about 400 at this point, and there's probably 100 more that did not get approved.
Okay.
But looking at these images, because I can see all these different like skill levels, right, of looking at these images over the last like couple of days. And I feel like people that have DSLRs, because this doesn't really apply to iPhones and things like that, shoot at a really low f-stop. So maybe like that 3.2 I'm talking about, or like 4, which some people wouldn't consider low. Like if you're a portrait photographer, you're like, 1.8 or
Sure.
like, or 2.8, 1.4, which is very low. So you get this very drastic, depth of field where it's very blurred out in the background, very clear in one part of a photo, essentially.
Yeah.
So some of these photographers are relying on those lower f-stops, but the thing is that like you can't see half of the dish. It's like this is blurred out, and that was the mistake I made when I first started doing food photography.
I feel like I should be paying you for this right now because I'm learning so much. Like
I'm glad.
Especially because like with the a lot of the video that we do, I'm like, oh, the background should, I should use this super shallow depth of field, like. And I was doing wedding stuff for a little bit. But for photos, I've always felt like I was missing the mark somewhere. And I think that's the mark I was missing, I think, is that I was...
Yeah. And I mean, I have friends that are professional photographers that I would consider probably better photographers than I in terms of like experience in projects. But when they go to food, it is not. Like I'm like, what is this? Like, how... Like... I think just because that's where I started for the most part is like this is where my brain is at all the time.
Yeah.
But most of the time when I'm shooting the final beauty shots for my blog, I'm at like F7 or like
I don't know the last time I was at F7 for anything.
Yeah, sometimes
unless I forgot an ND filter.
Right. Yeah, and that's the thing. Is like it also depends on what vibe. That's why I say it's like a stylistic choice. But I feel like generally F5 is like the lowest you want to go if you actually want to be able to see what this dish is. Okay. So, but again, it really depends on what the dish is itself. Maybe it's a flat bowl of something, like where it's just rice or something like that, and you're shooting it from up top. F4 is going to be fine because you don't have. Everything is almost on the same plane.
Sure, totally.
So you're not going to have a huge difference in distance.
Yeah.
But if you start bringing that camera down and shooting it from the front and you're shooting it at F4, you're going to get like one line of a few grains of rice in that bowl in focus, and then everything else is going to start blurring out from that. So maybe it's not as an effective of a way of shooting that.
Yeah.
And I've done food photography seminars, so I've talked about this stuff. And like food styling and stuff. And I love teaching people about it. I thought about doing a video course.
I was going to ask.
Maybe eventually.
I had made a note of that to ask you.
Yeah, I think that'd be rad. Because I think too with not...
I just know that it would be...
No, go ahead.
Sorry, did you know what?
No, go ahead.
No.
I was going to say, because food and product photography is so different than most other photography.
Yeah.
And so, like, not that, I mean, any product shots I do are with my iPhone, but for me, it's like light that seems way too harsh brings the best photos of product because you see more of the texture, you see more of those little tiny details that otherwise it's too, like you were saying, it's too flat looking and it looks weird and off and it's not interesting. And like, making a photo of like eyeshadow look interesting is just as tough as making like a piece of kale look interesting. So getting that extra stuff in there is so important.
Yeah. Yeah, and I will say, because I do have people ask me, like, oh, what tricks do you use? Kind of like when that really awful food styling video came out, and it was like, here's oil in my maple syrup, and like all of really awful shit. And I was like, oh, no, because, like I said, I don't like wasting stuff. So why would I waste the food that I'm eating? Typically what I do, so like, say for a piece of kale, for example, like, which depends on if it's curly or not, but say it's curly kale, which is more interesting. You know, I have a little spritzer that's actually from one of those Back to the Roots mushroom kits, but I got it like years ago, and I just fill it with a little water, and I usually spray the food with it, because you know, even if I'm shooting for like a half hour or something, things will get dry, and especially as dry as it is in Vegas, they get dry super fast. And just like, you know, and it gets arid in Utah as well. So, you know, I spray stuff with a little water, and even those little droplets, the way that they reflect in the light, and just like the texture that they bring to a photo can make it more visually interesting. And if something is a little bit more like greasy, like say a pizza or something, I'll usually spray it with a little bit of cooking oil, just like a fine mist, because spraying water doesn't make as much sense. It'll just bead up on top because there's usually some like rich fats or oils or something in it. So, yeah, spraying with, like, a little oil instead, still edible.
Yeah.
And then it just changes, like, the sheen of it to make it not as dried out looking or whatever. Like, you can keep a pizza looking pretty fresh like that for, like, a good hour. I did that at a restaurant, actually.
Is that how Chuck E. Cheese does it with the pizza they serve?
No. They're, like, another thing is, like, I feel like I'm a good in-between for, like, super beginner, and then like I'm not at like a corporate level of there's this one account that I follow where they end up having like robots involved in these shoots that are for bigger accounts like that. I think Steve Geralt is his name, and Justin, I'll send you his Instagram because it's incredible. And right now they're doing garage versions of the shoots, so it's still some stuff that probably the normal person, like the layman, wouldn't have, but it is so neat. I'll send you his account because it's super cool, but also I'm like, wow, I am not even close to like anything like that.
I always watch those videos where they have like the camera and the product is again, and they're shooting video, not photos, but it's all on a robotic arm, and they're shooting in, you know, this crazy high frame rate for these crazy slow-mo shots, and you see you know the behind the scenes of the camera moving super fast, and then this afterward of this nice smooth slow pan, and it's like totally just robots doing this. It is super wild, and it's like really impressive because you have to program all the robots to do that, so that takes like, you have to be an absolute engineer, and I honestly am so in awe of the people that do that, and also the money that it takes to do that. It's crazy.
Wild. So much money.
We've done like on our smaller scale, I have a Ronin S, which is like a handheld stabilizer, but it has a Bluetooth app, so I can program it to say start recording at point A, stop at point B, and I can add a couple different waypoints. But yeah, it's so fun, and like you said, so fascinating to think what goes behind the scenes of figuring that out.
Yeah.
Especially once you get into like stabilization and just, I don't know, it's a whole other crazy world, that corporate level of stuff.
Video, well, yeah, that too, but even video itself, because like a photo is one frame of a video, you know? So it is, there's obviously crosses between them in terms of lighting and things like that, but like Corey's thing is more video than photography, and so it's interesting to see what he does, because he also has I think the Ronin S that you're talking about.
Oh, nice,
so wild, and I help him with video shoots and stuff, so there's some stuff that I've had to use, but and I think that's also why I don't do video as much, is because I know what can be done with the stuff that we have, and I'm like, I don't want to put all the work into it. Like, but funny. Even like my cookbook launch video, I just did by myself, and I did it with 2 cameras and 2 tripods, and I was like, oh, I feel pretty good about this. Like, this is a good video for a cookbook launch, and I didn't have to tell Corey to do whatever, and then I just edited it all myself. So it ends up being a lot less stressful when it's just me handling everything. But I'm also a bit of a control freak, so
so good.
It's like, oh, it's worked out. So I was actually planning on shooting French toast today.
Oh,
I
We'll see
voted
what
for
happens.
French
That's
toast,
like
but
an
then I
actual
regretted
YouTube
my vote
video.
afterward.
how could you ever regret a vote for
Why?
French toast?
It's sourdough French toast.
Because as excited as I was about French toast,
What?
I know that we have bags and bags of lentils in our cupboard, and I'm like, okay, I should have voted for, like, practically I should have
Always
voted
vote
for lentils.
French toast.
We're going to pause right there
Always.
because we have to take a quick break for a mention from our sponsors. We'll be right back. All right, we are back.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for bearing with us on that long break, which to you was not a break at all. Jackie, tell us a little bit about what does pantry friendly mean, and where can people find some of your favorite pantry friendly recipes? Because it seems like you've been doing a ton of content lately around this concept.
Yeah. So, well, to be fair, like mid-March, I was a mental mess. Like, so I didn't really do a whole lot. I just did what I could. But now reached a good place. I'm like on a good anti-anxiety medication, and like
Nice.
now I'm productive. So
Awesome.
Just to be clear, like that was not happening for me for like a few weeks.
Sure.
But now feeling very, like I said, glad to be offering this service. And so pantry friendly means basically foods with a longer shelf life. So your dried grains, your canned goods. I even consider onions to be pretty pantry friendly because they last like a few weeks when you buy them.
Yeah.
As long as it's a pretty cool storage, and also shouldn't be next to your potatoes because those two cause each other.
I
to
didn't
sprout.
know that.
Yeah.
That's why they sprout?
Yeah. I mean that's not
they will
why,
sprout no matter what,
but it
like,
contributes.
it can be quicker. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the potatoes put off a little bit of like a certain gas, and so that's what causes it to sprout.
Sprouting pheromones, we'll call them.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, that's what pantry friendly means. Is like your dried beans, your dried grains, or canned beans, canned tomatoes, tomato paste, things that you can find that you can have on hand for weeks or months at a time,
and
or
things that
years,
a lot of
really.
us might have. Yeah, they might be in the back of our pantry.
Yeah.
We're like,
Absolutely,
I didn't realize I had this can of beans and tomato sauce and 6 bags of lentils.
Right. Yeah. And here's this like half can of the green chilies and like the chipotle and adobo situation, all of those things. Your jar of like sun-dried tomatoes and oil that you forgot about, like, which I have a couple of those.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's the focus right now, is to use some of those, and then also incorporate maybe some freezer friendly ingredients, or have substitutions for, like, if I have fresh bell pepper, maybe having an option or a substitution to offer for people where if they don't have that, like, if you have a jar of roasted red peppers, maybe that will work, or like diced tomatoes, something like that. So in the last like month, 3 weeks, we'll say, well, I'm like looking at my like blog timeline, and I'm like, oh, okay. Because I had put out a high protein meal prep for 2 menu on my blog, which is the first time I've done a meal prep post on my blog, because people asked for it, but it was like March 12th. So it was kind of right before shit hit the fan a little bit. And so then the next week is when I did a hearty lentil rice soup mix, which is from my second cookbook. So I posted that. Where you can just put the mix together and have it in a jar. I actually had it for like, in the book it says for camping and also maybe for emergencies if you want to put it in, like in California you have an earthquake kit, but like in anywhere else, you just have like an emergency kind of stash of dried food or canned food.
Yeah.
So, so now I've just been doing posts like that on my blog, and then doing a little bit more short form or a little bit looser recipes to just use up ingredients in my Instagram stories.
Nice.
So on my blog, veganyackattack.com, Y-A-C-K, yak, not like the animal.
Not like Canadian Yak Attack.
Yeah, right.
Which is just a website about yaks in Canada attacking people.
Yep.
Is it really?
No, I don't know. I just...
Because that would be amazing. I mean, it would be, well...
It is
like,
now.
kind of amazing, but kind of not. Like,
Yeah.
kind of like when it moves, like that kind of scary animal stuff. But, so I did the lentil rice soup mix, which is pretty basic. And then the next week I actually did cheesy sweet potato pierogi. And that was still very like, sweet potatoes are another thing I would consider more like pantry friendly. I've had the ones in my pantry for like months, honestly. And they've been fine. So like I said, as long as the temperature is pretty cool in your pantry, a lot of things can last for a while. But take, just observe your stuff. If it's not good, it's not good. But and so that was nice because you can also bulk cook those. So I ended up making a double batch and freezing some before the pan frying thing. And then last week, like I said, I did the Chipotle brown rice bake, which was super good. And in each blog post, I'm giving options for different substitutions. And of course, you can always like reach out to me and be like, hey, I just have this, or like, I don't have this. What else might work? And I will absolutely help you with any like cooking questions and stuff you have like that.
Yeah. You're super active on social, which I appreciate because also I like that to get you on this episode, I tweeted at you and said, do you want to be on this right now? And I was like, I probably should have DM'd her instead of done a public tweet, but I was like, it's fun.
Like a half hour
That's so funny.
I just love doing that because then I feel like your audience sees it and our audience sees it. I mean, I think like 100 people follow me on Twitter, but still, it's just, I don't know. There's something, I'll even like, Tashina will be in the other room and I'll tweet like, hey, are you making dinner tonight?
Yeah.
It's just more fun to me.
It's funny.
I do love those. Yeah. Especially because it's not like it's a text where you're just looking at it and you're going to see it. Like on Twitter, especially right now, I'm kind of not on it as much just because it can be a little mentally draining.
Yeah.
So it's like you come back to it in like a half hour and you're just like, oh wait, what has happened? Like, dinner's already ready, Justin. Like, get in here, or, whatever. So yes, but I am on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. Obviously, those are like where I end up talking to people the most. I have a very active Pinterest, but obviously that's not really like where you have a conversation. If somebody messages me on Pinterest, I just assume it's spam and I don't read it. So
same.
Or I read it, I automatically delete it. Like it's never a good conversation. So, but yeah, so if on any of those platforms you happen to be making something, usually I'll even see blog comments pretty close to when they're posted. It just depends on what I'm working on. Yeah. Like if I am working on a blog post in the kitchen, like maybe I won't see it, and so I won't be able to answer a question that's
exist.
like. I know, right? And that's what, when I first started blogging, that was like the main form of communication because Instagram wasn't out yet. And so now it's much, much different.
Totally.
But someone made the Chipotle brown rice bake the other day and they were like, it's 40 minutes in. It's still soupy. Like, what do I do? And I was like, well, and I was trying not to be a dick because like in the instructions, it says like bake it covered for 40 minutes, take it out, stir it, recover it, and then bake it for 20 more minutes, then uncover and bake it for 10 minutes if you want it a little drier. Like, so she just hadn't gotten to that part. And I write it like that because if someone, I don't like reading instructions that are like, oh, bake it for 60 minutes and then fold it halfway through. Like sometimes that's fine, but, or like stir it halfway through because I'll just set the timer and I'll forget to do it.
Yeah.
So if I get like those timing cues right away as opposed to reading it after the time, then I'm a little bit more apt to like do it correctly.
Absolutely.
And like shooting other people's cookbooks, like I've learned what I do and do not like from recipe writing. And I've also, like, I'm confident in my work. I'm not like a super confident person, like outside of that. Like, I'm like, all right, I'm social, but like, I'm like recipe writing. I'm like, no, this is like something that I'm actually very good at. And I feel like it's pretty good. So if you have any problems, ask questions, like 100%, like because some stuff can just be interpreted in whatever way, but I'm just trying to get people through this. Everyone's we all got to eat, like I said, and I want the food to be good, and I don't want you to be bored with whatever you're eating at home. And it's been very nice to like be clearing stuff out of my pantry, things where I just kind of set it aside and I'm like, what can I actually do with this? So it helps everyone. It's like a win-win-win situation.
Absolutely. I've been loving seeing your posts. Yeah. Super looking forward to checking out your newest book. Thank you so much for being on today. Super, super excited to do a part 2. Yeah. Because I definitely I have so many other questions and so much other stuff that I'll probably DM you about later that I just really interested in what you're doing because it's fascinating to me, and you're really, really good at it. So it's really cool to watch.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for being on.
Yeah, thank you so
Yeah.
much. This was
I'm
fun.
looking forward to part 2.
Absolutely. Okay, stay in line for 1 second. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.